only so much inside the box I'm capable of.
That's true.
Please find your seats if you would. Before we officially start the meeting, let's rise and have a prayer, and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, please. Russell? Yeah. Let's pray.
Lord, first off this morning, we just want to pause and acknowledge you for being so great and so mighty, for being our Savior and our Redeemer. And Lord, we want to thank you for, of course, this day and for this opportunity to serve on this board. Thank you for this county we live in. Thank you for blessing us and taking care of us. And Lord, as we go about our business at hand this morning, I pray that you would lead us and that you would guide us, that you would just have an impact on everything we do, on all of our decisions. Lord, I pray that you would help us to conduct ourselves in a manner of cooperation and not division. Lord, we pray that you would be with people around our county that are needing healing, both emotional and physical. Pray that you would be with people who aren't as fortunate as we are. Lord, I pray that you would help each of us to influence people to turn to you with their lives. It's our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will call this meeting to order. And we need to approve the minutes from last meeting. I think everybody on the panel should have received theirs by electronic mail. Anybody have any questions concerning the minutes from the last meeting?
I didn't see anything. I move we accept the minutes.
Second.
Have a motion made and seconded to accept the minutes and approval from the last meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Bill?
This time I'd like to introduce Tip Fowler, who has a brief presentation relative to JDC development and JDC phosphates. And Sarah, slides please. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. We just wanted to provide a little update on the status of our project and let you know, with thanks, where we are in terms of the grants work and research work for this companion product that we refer to as J-Rocks, this active product. If I can ask you to go to the one that says overview, Sarah. It's, I'm sorry, May 10th, and then this particular slide is overview.
Of overview. That's one?
Yeah, that's the one. So this was a slide taken May 10th, where we've achieved about 98% of construction completion. So you see on the left-hand side there what's called the hydrator or the acid plant. Way in the back, you'll see the kiln, and you'll see a roof going up over the plant. We expect to be mechanically complete at the end of this month, at the end of May. We will begin startup operations in June. We're forecasting production of phosphoric acid and J-Rocks sometime in July. So we've had a couple of delays from the last time we spoke to you, but we're working hard to get the plant up and operating and producing this aggregate material and phosphoric acid in July. We'll keep you updated in terms of how we're progressing, and we appreciate your support of this project through the research effort on the active product. Bill, would you like me to, or would you like to talk through the contract form?
Let me give you a brief update and just let you chime in a moment. After reflecting on how the contract should really be written between the IDA and JDC, we had initially pursued a direct contract with Dr. Armagani and his company, which is GSS. And we essentially consummated the components of that contract in the last month as a directive of the board. In discussions with TIP, we really feel like that the contract should be more appropriately written directly between JDC Development and the IDA as it relates to GSS. But then there's a second component with Florida State that we want to keep separated, because if we put Florida State's contract into JDC Development, they will have a 41% overhead charge. That's correct. So what I'm asking for the board to do is to give us one more month to change the contract so that it is actually between JDC Development and the IDA and Florida State and the IDA, and we'll bring it back to you at the next meeting. Is that perfect?
So again, we're very appreciative of the assistance that the IDA has provided for this research work. And any questions, please, now or at any time, happy to answer.
Thank you for the update.
I have a question.
We're not voting on anything, sir.
No, he asked if there were any questions.
Of the board.
Of the board. Hey, sir, do you have any questions? Take questions from the public.
You're really out of order.
No, I'm asking him.
You don't ask him, you ask us.
I'm asking you if you would mind, if this gentleman that wants to come to our county and give us a good job and a clean company, if you would allow him to take questions from the public. That's the question.
Why don't you talk to him after the meeting?
Why wouldn't he want to answer questions right now? Are you afraid of something, Mr. City? What are you afraid of? You don't want to answer questions.
Every time I answer one of your questions, you call me a liar. I'm not going to engage you with anything.
When you don't answer questions, you give more questions. Or when you give inaccurate or evasive.
We're moving on. Thank you, sir.
I'd like to ask this gentleman a question about the project.
Mr. Coleman.
I got 3 questions.
Mr. Coleman, we have already received his presentation in our March meeting.
What we need is a conversation.
We already had a conversation with this company. You are
received
out of
a
order,
reply.
and if you don't take your seat, you're about to be removed. Please sit down.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is, go ahead, Bill.
Okay, we have with us Mike Carter and Tricia Floyd, who are here to present the 2012 financial audit. And if you can share a microphone with them, Dottie or Doug, please, we appreciate it. Mike, you just have to be pretty close to that so your voice picks up. You can pull it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, Mr. Chairman, members of the board,
Pull it on up to you.
oh, okay. Is that better?
Okay.
It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and we are here to present the September 30th, 2012 audited financial statements to the board. This morning, Tricia is going to go over the numbers, and I'm going to go over the reports that we issued. But to start off, this next, work this thing. Okay. One of the main reasons that the board engages us is to plan and perform an audit so that we can render an opinion on the financial statements as to whether they are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And we did render an opinion, an unqualified opinion, that the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Next slide. This is just the CYA slide that says that we're going to go over some very summarized information, but it should be taken in conjunction with the financial statements as a whole.
closer because I can't lean forward very well. Unless I have to take a bathroom break in between. I apologize.
I'll get the door.
Thanks.
If she starts screaming, we may cut our.
I'm sure you'll be disappointed, right? Okay, well, we are very excited. This year we changed up our presentation a little bit and made a slideshow so that we could show comparative data. So you can see here that the IDA has now been audited for 4 years. So we've got 4 years of our assets listed here. And again, the way that governments work is they have 2 sets of financial statements. So the first portion of the presentation is on the government-wide, which is full accrual. So you can see from here that our total assets have increased significantly, and of course that's mainly due to Mosaic funds. But you can see from 2009 we went from 4.1, and then of course we increased to 5.1 for 2010, and then the large increase because we had not spent or had not spent any of the Mosaic funds that were received in 2011, and then 2012, of course, some of those funds have been spent. So we're at 15.1 million for our total assets. And this is a recap of the whole statement of net assets. So the total assets carried forward, and then liabilities, of course, those are due to some of the contracts that were in place at year end and just some timing issues on that. Then the net assets are listed down there, and of course those pretty well match the cash. So you can see that you've grown from a net asset basis significantly over the past several years. And please stop me with any questions if you have anything during the presentation.
Yeah, just to focus on the different categories of net assets. The first category is invested in capital assets, and that is all your land, buildings, equipment, net of depreciation, accumulated depreciation. And if there were any associated debt, it would be net of that associated debt. So the next section is restricted net assets, and that is largely the unspent Mosaic money that's restricted for economic development. And then unrestricted is just is yours to carry forward into the future and use for operations or however you choose to use it.
This next slide is a little bit harder to see, but this is the first year during 2012 that we have split out from the general fund a special revenue fund, and this is specifically for the Mosaic funds that were received. So now there's a tracking, there's a tracking, I guess, mechanism in place so that you can see exactly where you are on the Mosaic funds. I know that there's been spreadsheets and things like that along the way, but the financial statements have now been split out to reflect that as well. So you can see that based on the 2 different columns, you have different types of revenues that come in. The intergovernmental, the very first line for the general fund, that is the EDA grants that were received. And then the very next line is the Mosaic income, so that hit the second column with the special revenue grants fund of the 4.5 million that came in. And then we have a couple other sources of income: fruit income, rental income, of course interest income. The miscellaneous income is mainly due to one of the sales of the lots over at the IDA park. And then general government expenses and capital outlay, both total your expenditures for the year. The difference between general government and capital outlay is just capital outlay would be one of those items that's capitalized for the face of the financial statement, so then it becomes a fixed asset.
Trish?
Yes, sir?
On the Mosaic $4,500,000, where does the $500,000 come out that would give to the county commission? Is that another slide?
No, the way that it's presented is a net effect because of the way the contract is written. So the board does reflect their $500,000 that they've received as income, and then the 4.5 is reflected as income. So it's just a way that it's presented. But $5 million was received and $500,000 did go to.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes. So it's just the way that it's presented here because of some of the language in the contract. That was what we felt was the most efficient.
Okay. I didn't remember it was $5 million. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It was
okay.
$5 million.
All right.
So the first 2 years is 5, and then it goes down to it'll be 500,000 less.
Okay. Okay.
Paid for.
Any other questions on that? You'll see towards the bottom there's a transfer in and a transfer out. You'll notice by the third column that they net to 0. The reason why we had to do the transfer in is that was the opening balance for a fund number or an equity number, opening balance. And in order to reflect that in the statements the year that you split out a fund, you have to show it as a transfer. So Your cash balance in the beginning of the year was $4.4 million, and then of course you have all your current year activity in that column. So you ended with $5.7 million. And this is the governmental funds. So now we're switching over to the fund basis financial statements, which again is on a modified accrual basis. So you'll notice that maybe some of the revenues are different from here if you happen to be checking them back to your financial statements. So this again is a 4-year comparison, and you can see that from 2009 there was only $50,000 worth of revenue, all the way up to 2012 when we had $7.2 million worth of revenue. So you can see the Mosaic funds have significantly influenced that, as well as that miscellaneous category in 2012 with the $560,000 from the sale. And this reflects the 2012 revenues and the different types that you have. Of course, the Mosaic income is a big portion of that, and the intergovernmental is the EDA grants that you've received.
Could you move that chair?
Oh, I'm sorry, the slide, I didn't realize that. This shows the expenditures for the 4 years. And as you can see, again, the expenditures are expected to increase just as the revenues had increased. Capital outlay has increased significantly, as well as the general government. And that's, again, based on all the monies that you've spent for each of the contracts that you've awarded. And this shows the net income, takes the total revenues, total expenditures, and the net change in fund balance is equivalent to your net income over the 4 years. And you'll notice back in 2009 and 10 we were at losses. Those were very cognitive losses, I guess you could say. There was cash available, so you made sure that you were doing things that satisfied county needs. So like in 2009 the expenditures were very high due to there was $300,000 that was given for the Gethard Road project. There was an airport study done. There were some other things going on with inventory as it changed that hit expenses. So I think that even though it was a loss, those were cognitive things that you were doing because you had the cash available.
It should also be noted that the source of those revenues was from the dependent special district,
Right.
not the independent special district, because there was a totally different statutory spending definition for that money.
Right, those are carry forward funds from prior years.
Correct. And same type with 2010. There was some deferred revenue. The EDA had contracts that there was some retainage on, so that's why the expenditure were a little bit higher and there was a loss for the year. Depreciation kicked in 2010 as well. Depreciation is a non-cash item, so that would increase your expenditures even though you hadn't received cash, physical cash for it. 2011 and 2012, we've had net income. So this slide shows the GASB 54 was implemented last year, and this is the unassigned, assigned, restricted, and non-spendable categories for our equity balances, for the fund balance of the financial statement. So this just shows a breakdown of where you were equity-wise from 2009 up to 2012, and then of course on the right-hand side, 2012, and how it's classified into categories for restriction.
What is non-spendable?
Non-spendable is the inventory.
That's your lot inventory.
That makes sense, okay.
Because it's not available to be spent. So the restricted portion is the Mosaic.
It's different nomenclature than I'm used to.
It's different for everybody. It was brand new last year, so definitely.
Yeah, generally, when you see that in governmental financial statements, it's going to either be inventory or prepaids. Those are the two most popular categories that go into that.
So from an overall perspective, in the fund balance financial position, you guys are in a great spot. Having that cash available, having that entire unassigned amount and the restricted amount and the assigned amount are all pretty much in your cash balance right now. So compared to a lot of other counties, a lot of other special districts, especially for economic development, I think you guys are in a great position moving forward. So are there any questions on the numbers? All right, I'm going to turn it back to Mr. Carter then.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask you, it ain't going to be a big deal. It's just everybody up for the vote. The EDA grants
I have a lot of people that don't understand where that money originates from and how it gets to you guys. If you have a real brief explanation for the public, I think I understand it myself, but
I'll be glad to answer that for you, Mr. Kirkland. The EDA money was provided to us in 2004 with legislation from the state of Florida. It came in two ways. The first two disbursements of severance tax money that came back to the county were dispersed to a dependent special district, in which the BOCC had control of the money through the dependent special district. Some of this money you were talking about was the residual of that money that was used to we put it to Gebhardt Road paving and to the ball fields for the most part. And it cleaned up all of the initial directive from the legislature. Once the dependent special district, it had a 2-year existence, and then an independent special district was formed with 9 members that are designated in the statute.
EPA.
EDA, Economic Development Authority. That board is an independent special district because the BOCC only appoints 4 of its 9 members. And it of course is audited separately. It's not component.
No,
it's not even non-component. It's just an independent special district that stands on its own.
Yes.
And that money comes back to Hardee County with specific directives. It basically is created to do 3 things: to solicit, rank, and fund grants for economic development and economic development infrastructure. Its rules are promulgated by the independent special district. Is that sufficient?
Well, mostly except for the actual origination. Where, how many different places does the money come back to the county from? And that'll finish the question. Does it come from the severance tax?
All of that is a redistribution of severance tax monies that are paid into the state. And this specific allocation formula, which changes over the years, I mean, the amount of dollars per ton assessed on severance taxes and the manner and pro rata share in which it is returned to Hardee County is a very complex formula. But for the most part, it has generated about $2 million a year. Some years it's a little more, some years it's a little less. And the way I kind of follow it is it generally runs about $1 million per drag line digging in the county. We have gone, though, recently from 2 drag lines to 6 drag lines. CF says that one of their drag lines is not really an active production drag line. They're having to dual mine, or I'm not sure exactly what the process is. Their production has not changed, but you will see a significant increase in the EDA monies this year to the county. I think they're up from about 1.8 million to to the independent special district, up from 1.8 million to 2.7 million. And that is for just a part of the year's mining from Mosaic.
Okay, well, my basic thing was mostly it's almost, can you say it's 100% coming from severance tax?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
That's as simple as that. Thank you.
Now, there was none of that allocation of money was ever coming to the county, and the county's money relative to transportation trust for road infrastructure improvements, none of that money has ever been impacted by any of the legislation.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, there are a couple of other reports that we issue as part of the audit. One is required by government auditing standards, and it's a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance and other matters. And in this report, and I know we've gone over it before, but in auditing there's 3 levels of severity of findings. The lowest level is called a control deficiency, and control deficiency means that there's a problem, but it's probably not going to have a material impact on your financial statements. The highest level severity is called a material weakness, and material weakness means that there is a condition that either did cause a material misstatement of your financial statements, or there's a high probability that it can cause a material misstatement. And then there's a level in between called a significant deficiency, which it doesn't rise to the level of being material weakness, but it is significant enough it needs to be brought to your attention. This report, auditing standards require us to put material weaknesses and significant deficiencies in this report as it relates to your financial statements as a whole. And we had 3 findings this year that went into this report. The first one was a prior period restatement having to do with putting the poles on the books as a capital asset that were related to broadband. They weren't on there last year. This was one of the findings that the Auditor General had. So the Auditor General really had 2 findings that addressed your financial statements, and this was the first one. The next 2 addressed the other finding the Auditor General had in their operational audit as it related to your financial statements, which were not correcting prior year findings. The first one is preparation of financial statements. Is considered to be a material weakness if you don't have or don't contract out the expertise to develop financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And I understand that the next agenda item hopefully will take care of that going forward. And the third item was also, our finding was a repeat of last year, and there were numerous material proposed audit adjustments that needed to be booked in order to get the financial statements into compliance with generally accepted accounting principles. And those, on the letter that you have that we'll go over in a minute, there's a number of adjustments that are in the back of that letter that this finding relates to. Are there any questions on the findings in that report? There are also, if not, there's also Auditor General requires us to issue a management letter which addresses a number of specific things such as the status of prior year findings. And in your report, there's a table that shows the status of prior year findings. You can see that a number of those findings, like segregation of duties, formal documented policies, compliance with the statute filing requirements, the properly recording transfers between cash accounts, the Property Owners Association, and I think the rest of them are just basically the same thing from the prior year. Those items are cleared from last year. That's on page 29 of the financial statements. I'm sorry. There's a table back there that shows the status of prior year findings. And then there's 4 findings that have not been cleared. The ones we talked about: preparation of financial statements, material audit adjustments. Those are those are the 2 from the 2 prior years, from 2010 and 2011. In addition, the management letter requires us to state whether or not you've invested excess funds in accordance with Florida statutes, and you have. It also requires us to mention anything else that's, that we feel like should be put in the report that's not in any other report, which in the management letter, we did address the Auditor General's operational audit on page 31, the top paragraph. And we just stated that there was an operational audit conducted, and we give the location on the Auditor General's website where that report can be found. We did not go into detail, since that's already been that report has already been delivered to the Joint Legislative Audit Committee, and it's already public record, and it's already available. And the Auditor General will be coming back within 18 months to do a follow-up audit. Also, we are required by the Auditor General to address whether you're in a state of financial emergency, which, as you can see from Tricia's presentation, you're not. And we also are required to do a financial condition assessment to see if there's declining financial condition, which obviously yours is getting better. And so there's nothing to report there either. So, any questions on the two reports that we're required to issue? One other thing that we are required by auditing standards, which is this letter, this other letter that we gave you, is we are required to make certain communications to those in charge of governance, which is you. And we're required to spell out our responsibilities under generally accepted auditing standards, which are largely to plan and perform the audit so we can render an opinion on the financial statements. We're required to make the required communications that we are making in this letter, and we're required to make the communications required by the Auditor General, which are in the management letter. As far as significant estimates that are used in preparation of financial statements, the estimate of the allocation of inventory assets was used. We've looked at that and we agree with the allocation management is used. And the estimate of the fair value analysis of determining the lower cost or market with inventory, which we agree with. We didn't encounter any difficulties during the audit. We do have a list of the proposed audit adjustments excuse me, that were recorded as part of our audit in the back of this letter. We did not have any disagreements with management. So with that, I will be glad to answer any questions that the board might have.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On your excuse me, on your table of prior year's findings,
yes,
you have 4 items in here that are shown to be not cleared.
it's really two of the same thing with 2 different years.
What is the what steps do we need to take to get those resolved so we can be in clear?
Well, my understanding is the next agenda item will hopefully take care of both of those. I saw on the agenda that you have Wicks, Brown, Williams. I guess Bill has been in discussions with them, and they're a fine CPA firm that do a lot of governmental accounting and auditing, and I think they can cure both of those comments for you.
I would also remind you that the 2 of those audit findings I had been telling you repeatedly that we would be criticized, and it basically came down to the ultimate determination of component unit or non-component. And the main reason, I mean, it's really not a complex situation. To get us to this point in our accounting and our auditing, I had felt like that at the end of the day, if we were a non-component unit, my preference would be to try to engage Clifton Larson Allen as the board's CPA. They cannot do that if we're a component unit because they also audit the county. And that just, the Auditor General didn't object to it, but Clifton Larson Allen objects to it. And I understand why they do, rightfully so. With the recent classification and determination of the IDA as a component unit, it cleared the way for me to begin dialogue and discussion with a firm in the area that has a competency to help us directly with the accountant. As long as Clifton Larson Allen remains the auditor for the county, I would presume they will continue to be the auditor for the IDA. So again, the next agenda item will deal with both of those issues. The booking of the polls was, it was an Auditor General finding in the operational audit, and it's a timing issue. We can't transfer the assets until their internal audit is complete. We have completed the audit, and it will be forthcoming, I suppose, probably for presentation to you at the June meeting. We had some discussions relative to booking the asset, and we felt like that it was so short-term, in and out, and the contract clearly defined the intent of the polls that we made a determination last year not to book them. Auditor General said you should book them, so we're booking them. Once you get the audit, agree to transfer the asset, or whatever you do, they'll come off the books. And those are basically the 3 findings.
Yeah, I would suspect that those will be off the books for next year's audit. So it'll just be on for 1 year.
Well, haven't we heard from the audit, from the legislative committee about this? Legislative Audit Committee? About
Not
these
the
findings?
booking. I don't understand your question.
Didn't you get a letter from the Legislative Auditing Committee about these, about, we only have, what, till July to get these things straightened out? Is that what that was or not?
Recently.
They're
Oh,
actually at the meeting that they presented your operational audit, they passed a, I don't know if you call it resolution. Anyway, they made a requirement that local governments respond to the Legislative Audit Committee and if they have repeat findings from prior years. And that's what that letter, I believe what that letter refers to, is you're going to need to respond.
Well, we did call
to the
them.
auditor, to the Joint Legislative Audit Committee, because you do have 2 repeat findings, so you're going to need to respond to them why you have those repeat findings and how you're going to cure that condition.
We did call them relative to the letter, Mike. I don't know if we told you about it, but basically our query was that we had addressed these issues in the operational audit, and I don't think they really ever even thought about internally looking at a manner of answering their query through the answer of the operational audit. And the nature of this letter was to make sure we addressed them in the financial audit. So we really have done it twice with them.
Well, you will be getting a letter once you submit this to the Auditor General saying, what are you going to do about these repeat findings if you haven't already gotten one? Because they've been going out.
And
They're going
just
out
expect it.
for everyone, not just,
right.
Yeah.
right, it's for everyone.
Every
in the
local
state.
government in Florida has gotten a letter if they've had repeat findings as to explaining why they had those findings and what they're going to do to fix that.
Well, again, depending on the outcome of the next discussion item, the destiny of those issues will be handled.
Yes, Mr. Carter.
I don't know if this works, but I'll try. I'd like for you to hear what I got to say. I think, and I may be wrong, and I'll be gladly proven wrong or explain to what's going on. But there was a statute that came out, I think in 2010 that was adopted, and in 2011 you were supposed to start reporting each project you have going that you're putting money into. There was supposed to be a report on that project turned into the government. I don't think they have been done. You understand?
We're talking about the audit right now.
Well, this is an audit thing, I would think, that the auditors or somebody would have to be making the reports and studying. And I don't want to make you, well, if you get mad, that's okay too, but I am not up here for that purpose. I'm here to give you a heads up. I came before this board probably a year before the Auditor General came and give you a heads up on 189, and then 6 months before they came on 159, I was laughed at, scoffed, and made fun of.
All right,
But
thank you.
I'm just trying to give you a heads up on it.
We
If
appreciate
you're not
your
interested,
concern.
thank you.
We appreciate your concern. Mr. Coleman, briefly, please, sir.
Thank you so much. Just a real quick question. If you have 15.1 million in assets, I just had a question. Does that include assets that are that I think belong to the IDA but are in use by various of our projects, like Continuum Labs and Czech River? They're purchasing assets with our money, and I just wanted to know if this 15.1 million includes those, in addition to Rapid System assets.
If
The date of this audit is September 30th, 2012, Henry.
if land or buildings have been sold, they've been taken off the books. If they're being rented or they're still owned by the IDA, they are on the books.
Okay. The Continuum Labs purchased the grant on September the 11th of 2012. So and all the assets for LifeSync would transfer over. My question is, and you answered it, there is nothing in this report about any of the assets in any of these projects where IDA money was spent and those assets are unaccounted for. That's my assumption. Thank you. Is that assumption correct?
The grant, we gave them the money.
That was expensed, correct. The specific one that you're referring to was an expense. It is not a capital.
Yeah, that was shown as an expenditure, so it's not.
You're showing those as expenses, not assets, right?
Correct,
Well,
unless they are in ownership or possession of it. So Continuum is not.
Any other questions of the board? For those of you who don't know, and I suspect most of you do, we have requested an Attorney General's opinion on Chapter 159, which had to do with some of the Auditor General's comments, and we've requested that opinion. We've not got it yet, and once we get that, then that'll tell us if we're in compliance or not in compliance, or what we should do or not do, and when we get that, we'll certainly share that with everybody.
Mike, can you refresh the formal action the board needs to take today relative to the audit and the timeframes?
Well, this is a draft. I mean, you can approve the draft. And if there were any changes you saw there, you could contingent on those changes. We still need to get the letter of representation, and we're close to getting finals out. But the numbers won't change. But so you could approve this draft and then allow us to do finals that way.
Did we get this by email? That's the first time we've seen this.
We just got it.
I need to look at it.
Yeah, and I do apologize for that. We've kind of been pushed.
Well, I think basically what we do today is acknowledge receipt of the draft.
If you would like us to come back to your next meeting and
I'd like to have some time to review it. I haven't had time to do that.
Absolutely. We'll be glad to come back next month. Well, I will.
I'd like to see the baby.
3 or 4 of you. How many? 3?
Yeah.
Feels like it.
I think Trish is going to be busy next month. But I'll be glad to come back next month after you had a chance to look at it. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer any questions for you. I do apologize. We generally don't do it. We like to give you time to look at it and have questions going into the meeting.
What we'll do today then is acknowledge receipt of this draft and give everybody a chance to ingest it and get comments, and then next month we can go from there.
Okay, that sounds good.
I would. This year, we will be reporting as a component unit. So it will not be the responsibility of the IDA to transmit the annual financial report. The audit is our responsibility.
That is one change we had in the footnotes. We did explain why you are a component unit of the Board of County Commissioners, and we, you did in your financial statements, and as was explained in the last board meeting we attended, what that means to you really isn't that much. It just means that you have to put that disclosure in your financial statements, and you don't have to file an annual financial report because your information will be included on the county's annual financial report. That's essentially all it means to you.
I would reiterate to this board that I have no objection to our classification of component or non-component. It makes no difference to me. I do object to the basis of determination made by the Auditor General. I believe they erred in the evidence that they used, but it's hopefully doesn't matter.
As far as the effect on you, the only difference it makes to you is you don't have to file an annual financial report. You're relieved of that responsibility.
Well, we were pretty well chastised and criticized over that. Why didn't you do this earlier?
May I just? Hello?
You're on.
Oh, okay. I couldn't hear myself. As you pointed out, we were chastised for
not filing a financial report when, as we now have found out, it was never our responsibility to file a financial report?
It's semantical and rhetorical.
But it will be filed with the Board of County, with Hardy County Board of County Commissioners annual financial report, which will be going out before June 30th.
Discreetly presented.
It is, yes, you are discreetly presented component unit. So in their financial statements, there will be an extra column in the statement of net assets and the statement of activities that has your financial information on there.
It'll show you standing behind a tree.
Yeah, really. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda.
You have in front of you a proposal. I am seeking permission from the board to engage Wicks, Brown, Williams and Company from Sebring to handle our auditing, our accounting services at the fee rate. I'll let Mr. Cox go through that. Mark Cox is here today to answer any questions you may have. My preference is to be able to hire them directly under an emergency provision or otherwise as deemed by the board to give us time to develop an RFP. They have agreed to come in and begin working with us immediately so that we can say with certainty that we have fixed the financial audit findings. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Cox and allow him to continue the presentation. Welcome.
Well, good morning. Good morning. I am Mark Cox, and I'm one of the owners and partners of Wicks, Brown, Williams. I'm in the Sebring office. Just to tell you a little bit about our firm, we have an office in Sebring, Lake Placid, and Okeechobee. And we do a lot of different services, tax services, that type of thing, but we also have a government emphasis, and we've been doing that, I guess, since the firm started in the 1950s. So we've been doing it a while. I grew up in Sebring and have been with the firm all my career for about 23 years. My partner is John Davis. He's also listed on the letterhead. He's in my office in Sebring. We work very closely together. He will also be involved. He's involved. Am I doing that?
Somebody's phone is.
Oh. So John Davis will also be on board to help with the accounting. And actually, Charlie Cox, he's listed at the bottom of the letterhead. He's my nephew. He'll be doing, he's the CPA versus the partner. John and I are partners, and Charlie's the CPA that'll probably be over here more often and be helping out with the bookkeeping. Charlie started his career actually with, it was NCT then, or Clifton Larson Allen, working with Mike, and then stole him back to Sebring, and might have had something to do with my family relationship since he's my nephew. But anyway, we've come over, we've met, we understand a lot of the problems. I'm sure we don't understand all of them, but we want to give you our commitment to help you out, get things, do the bookkeeping, help with that, maybe some different management reports, help you develop those on the rental properties and things like that. And I believe we're well qualified to help you, and we give you our commitment to perform the engagement and make sure that your books are caught up and that we get rid of these findings to the best of our ability.
So we're going to engage them temporarily until we get an RFP done, and they'll respond to the RFP also.
Yes.
How much experience do you have in GASB?
I've been doing it all my career, so 23 years, and John Davis as well. John's going to be brought in a little more because he's the head of our government right now. We don't normally talk about our private clients, but since they're public knowledge, I mean, we've been the city auditors for City of Sebring for since the 1950s, and so we've been doing government for quite a while. Yes.
Yes.
How much time are we looking at giving? Is it 6 months, 8 months, 12 months? I mean, to get the RFP out and get it somebody picked, and I mean, it's going to be a chore for these people to even get in the know of what's going on. You know, so I hate to just get them started and then we kick them out. I mean, it's.
Well, we have to go through essentially a competitive bid process.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, are we going to do this temporary thing for 6 months or a year?
I hope we have others that bid because it has a tendency to keep them honest on their rates when we do RFP. I don't see any of that as a particular deterrent. We will move expeditiously on developing an RFP. And I don't think it'll take over 6 months to go through this process. There's some advertising requirements, and then depending on how the board, if you choose to table for a month, I mean, it could take us 6 months to do it. But if you want to stipulate that they will be hired temporarily for 6 months, and if we have not effectuated the completion of a RFP at that point, then we'll have to extend it.
Okay, you think you're going to be able to get right in here and get this thing going and understand everything that we do here, which is complicated sometimes? And or how long? I mean, I want to be fair to you. Do you come in here and really get to going good? Then we say, all right, see you. We've picked somebody else. You know, we need to be fair. You know, that's all I'm looking at.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that, and I think if, you know, as soon as possible to go through the process would be the best, just so that we know we're either on board or not. But
yeah.
But we actually have a meeting May 24th with Tricia to go over more details of your entity, and so we plan to get right on it. Yes, sir.
I don't have an answer.
So moved.
Pleasure of the board.
So moved.
What's the motion?
Motion is
6 months.
temporarily.
Okay, then the motion would be to hire them temporarily for a period not to exceed 6 months.
No, I don't want to say not to exceed. It may come back. It may take a year.
I don't think it will take that long.
We'll do 6 months then. We can extend it if we have to.
Having trouble hearing.
I've never had that complaint before.
I didn't want you to hear us.
All right.
Let's do it for 6 months. If we have to extend it, we will.
Okay, then the motion will be to approve hiring of Wicks, Brown, Williams. Is there one other name on that?
And company.
Wicks, Brown, Williams, and Company at the rate prescribed in the letter attached to the agenda for a period not to exceed 6 months, and to direct the development of an RFP for permanent accounting or for contracted accounting services.
Good.
So eloquent.
So eloquent.
We have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Why don't we take a 5-minute break? It's almost 5 till 10. Let's come back at 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Are you going to sing it next?
All right, next on the agenda is the Mosaic budget amendment. Sarah?
All right, good morning. Each of you should have a copy of the Mosaic budget that was placed on your desk. It's not actually in your agenda packet, so if you'll get that out. We really just have one amendment that needs to be voted on today. I basically have taken the budget and done a little bit of cleanup on it, so it's a little bit neater for you to look at. But as far as the amendments go, if you look at the second to last column on the right, and it says amended in 2012-13, down at the very bottom, the last line, you will see JDC phosphates and the allocation for $200,000, which the board voted on at the March meeting. And so we do need to take a vote today to amend the budget to recognize that allocation of $200,000 for them. And then just to go over the remaining portions of the budget, if you look down below the columns, you'll notice that the total allocated amount as of today is almost 8.8 million, and leaving you with $203,625.75 unallocated at this point. Now, there will be another disbursement that will be coming in within 30 days. The state has received the payment from Mosaic, and so they have 30 days to then supply us with our next disbursement of funds. So we would expect to see that coming in anytime now. So that'll be updated on your next board. By June, we'll have that money in, so I'll bring the budget for you again and show that that $4 million has come in.
Can we have a breakout of the $8.8 million?
Sure, certainly. If you look...
I mean, I don't know if you're prepared. You got that?
No, that's fine. If you look at the second column, the yellow column, that's going to be our first column that we're going to look at, and that shows your allocations, the first set of allocations. So you'll see the first line is administration, and we have $200,000 under that category. We are allowed to stipend out $100,000 each year for administrative use in administering this fund. To date, we have not used any of those funds, so we just continue to put them in our reserves, and we are up to $200,000 in that category. The next category is $250,000, and it's an allocation for National Solar. They have not collected on that money to date, but we still have it in our budget, and if and when they do make good on their commitments, that money will be transferred over to them. The next category is $60,000 for PACER. They have a job creation award for $60,000. They have an obligation to provide an additional 15 jobs to collect on that $60,000. Now, I will tell you that I've been working closely with them. They did submit their ETC 6 forms to me probably about 6 months ago in order to collect on the $60,000. But after I did my research and looked over all of their reports, they were only at 12 for their job creation, and the contract states that they have to have 15. So I did go back to them and talk to them about that and ask them to keep at it, and then when they felt like they got to that 15 number, to come back and I would review it again. So they told me that they probably would not be doing that until next February, so I would expect not to see anything from them until at least February of 2014. So that'll remain allocated for them. And then the next category is $74,000 under chamber marketing, and this category is really going to go to a straight marketing category. When we brought on our communications coordinator position, we allocated a certain amount in the budget for a marketing budget specific to the EDO as a whole, to do marketing for all of the organizations that encompass our office. So that is her budget. Now, the original was given out to the chamber, and after some just administrative changes, the EDC did hire the communications coordinator position under the EDC rather than making that a chamber position. So the original allocation was to the chamber, and the $74,000 included the $20,000 marketing grant that you awarded to the Chamber of Commerce for their website development marketing program that they did for their members. So that's what that allocation is for. You can see in the green column, if you go over one column, that they have spent the $15,954.60 out of that grant. So the remaining $58,000 that's in there is what the communications coordinator has for the marketing budget for the office. Any questions so far before I keep going? All right, the next category is broadband. Originally, we had $500,000 allocated, and that was for the connection of fiber from ONA to an endpoint. We have since amended that down to $250,000. After some research, they feel that we might not need $500,000 to accomplish that goal. So we have amended it down to $250,000. We expect that we probably will distribute those funds out sometime in the 12-13 fiscal year, but as of today, we have not expended any of that money. The The next category is Hardy Lakes, and that's a $250,000 allocation. They came before the board and they were awarded a grant for $250,000 for the Hardy Lakes project.
What is the status of the Hardy Lakes? I think it's important.
It is. They have collected their $250,000. Danny Weeks came before the board, it's been several months ago, that he gave kind of an update to you guys, and they still had some pretty substantial goals that they needed to complete. Bill and I were discussing this a couple of days ago when I was going over this with him, and they need to kind of do a closeout report for you and kind of give you an update as to where the park is. I mean, to my knowledge, I don't believe that, I mean, Bill could probably say, you know, a little bit better. I don't know if how far they've progressed with that.
After our conversation, Sarah, I forgot to tell you, I did have 2 reports from Janet Gilliard that she had provided as per the contract on information she received from Danny. And I just haven't had a chance. We can have Danny come before the board, because the contract does ask them to do that.
Yes.
We can have him come before the board at the next meeting and give us an update.
If I'm not mistaken, Danny did discuss those reports when he came before the board a couple months ago, I believe. Yes. So the reports that Janet had provided, he did discuss those.
Well, let's just have him.
So he needs to come back and do a little update.
Just let's agenda him for the next agenda.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay, the next category is for Easy Products, and again, that they were awarded a Mosaic grant for some certifications that they needed in the amount of $26,409.25, and they have collected on that grant. The next category is Blue Water, and that was the original grant of the $2.5 million. All of that has been expended out to date. The next category is Tourism Development. The original budget was for $150,000. They actually came in at $92,552, and so we have capped that. The remaining $7,000, if you go down to the very bottom, you'll see that I made 2 footnotes in red. The first one shows that the remaining $7,000 that is left over from the original $150,000 for tourism development is going to be rolled over into the bionitrogen allotment. We'll kind of skip down to bionitrogen. You have $1 million allotment for bionitrogen. And so I have taken that $7,448 and rolled that into their $1 million grant and just kind of made a note of it. And do you have any questions before I go on with that?
In the blue column, it shows 150.
Yes, that was the original budgeted amount. And they spent $92,552 on it. So that's all that that's all they're going to spend on the tourism development aspect.
So you have
$57,000. That's what you're getting to.
Right. I mean, you're answering for the $7,448, but the original was 150.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right.
Sarah, I have a quick question. Back up at the blue water.
Uh-huh.
In the blue column at 2.657, 813.
Yes.
In the yellow column, it's 2.557, 852. Is that those are correct numbers? That's not.
They are. You'll see that actually if you go down to Continuum's line, you'll notice that their grant was for $3 million, but if you go to the yellow, it's at $3,099,000. When Blue Water had their draw schedule, there were a couple of months when they did their draw that they actually didn't do it at the draw amount. It was a little bit less. So that remaining portion got rolled over to Continuum. So that's why there's a little bit of difference in those numbers. The Preco award, we had an EDA grant for the purchase of the building, and then we allocated an additional $700,000 for building costs and renovation. And we have expended the $400,000 and we will expend the additional $300,000 this year for the building renovation. So that one is essentially complete. Then Continuum's grant, All of that will be expended in 12-13. Bionitrogen, as we discussed, there is $1 million allocation for them. They have not collected on that to date, and if and when they do, that money will be made available for them. Then the communications coordinator, we did take the salary for that position out of the Mosaic budget, and so you have a distribution of $35,600 that has been transferred from the Mosaic budget over to the EDC to pay for that position. And then today's amendment will be for the $200,000 for JDC Phosphates for their completion of their studies.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I've got some questions. Did we award a grant to somebody for the city-to-city utilities? Was that awarded to those people from piggyback into? Have we done that yet?
EDA.
Yes, sir. That was an EDA grant. That wasn't.
Oh, that has. Okay, is that going to come to us and then go to them? Then that'll be added to this.
No, sir. It won't come out of the Mosaic grant at all. That is a straight EDA grant that we are applying to the EDA for those funds for the water and sewer corridor project.
Right.
So.
But once we do, then that will go on this list, though.
No, it won't go on this. The only projects that are on this list are projects that are funded through the Mosaic agreement.
Well, I thought bionitrogen came from the EDA.
But it's $2 million, $1 million from the Mosaic agreement and $1 million from the EDA.
Okay, that's why I'm asking these questions. All right.
So I'm only allocating out the Mosaic side, not the
Okay,
EDA
all right.
side.
Well, let me ask you this then. I guess the pink part of this is the main concern, or is the main part of this. Is that right?
The far right one?
Yeah.
The dark pink?
Yeah.
Well, that column shows what will be distributed in this fiscal year,
Okay.
in 12-13.
Yeah. Well, that's the one. Okay.
And if you look at the green column, that was what was distributed in fiscal year 11-12. So
Right.
you can look at that and see
Right.
what you have already expended out to projects.
Right.
And then the dark pink shows you what you have left to expend out.
Okay.
to
Well,
projects.
that's what my question is. Do we have that amount of money in escrow to
Yes, sir.
cover these projects?
We don't ever budget anything that we don't have. We never allocate money above what we already have.
And
So
it's in the restricted column of financial
yes,
statements.
it's.
I'm not a CPA. That's why I'm asking these questions.
I'm not either.
This is that banker.
Yes.
Okay.
no,
Well,
we don't.
that's been my concern. We don't
No.
award grants on anticipated
No,
money.
we do not. Not at
Okay.
all.
That's what I wanted to know. That's my question.
Even though we anticipate and fully expect to receive our additional allotment this month, we still do not show that money until it is actually booked. And we do not award projects based on those monies until they are actually in our.
Okay, and we've got more money than this 5.7 million to do things with as we need to, like the Tech River furniture that comes from somewhere.
Yes, sir, you're correct.
Okay,
This is only showing
and the broadband to Tech River that comes from someplace.
Correct. Right. The IDA also has a general revenue fund that we have additional monies that we can allocate to things such as the furniture for Tech River or
Okay.
broadband or whatever you want to allocate that money for.
Well, what about the sheriff's substation and that filter system we're putting out there? Was that
The
was that
lift
EDA
station?
money? That was EDA money, wasn't it?
Correct.
Okay. Maybe I'll get this straight. Okay, I think you've answered my question.
I have a question on your first bulleted item on the original allocation on tourism development. You talked about the 7448 going back to the biomedical grant.
Yes.
But we had $1 million, did we not allocate it already for biomedical?
Yes, there is $1 million allocation for biomedical.
I'm confused why
So-
that money, not only the 7448, but also the 50,000 that was brought up, was returned back to unallocated amount.
The 150,000 should be 100,000, not 150,000.
Okay.
Number one, and but But just to tell you why I did it the way I did it, in order for the numbers to zero out, I couldn't say that they spent $92,552 and leave it at that, because I would be over by $7,000. If I put in, I can't go under the $1 million for the allocation to bionitrogen, because that's not what the award is for. The award is for $1 million. So I have to show that on the books at $1 million. I have to show that that $7,000 went somewhere in order for my column in yellow.
It looks to me like that 7,448 disappeared because we had it in TD.
Well, it does. That's what I'm saying. In order to zero it out.
We already had $1 million allocated to bionitrogen. So if you put it in bionitrogen, that number has to go up by 7,448.
That's what I'm saying. In order for my, if you look at column, the yellow column and the light pink column. See those two columns? If you add those, if you take those in order to zero out what to equal what is the total allocated amount, and take your dark pink column of the 5 million and then subtract out the yellow column again. So you take the 8 million, the 8.5 million, and subtract what we're distributing out this month or this year and what we've already distributed. That's how I had to get it to get my numbers for the total allocated amount to match those two columns. Lori's shaking his head like the bank. I don't understand. I don't know that I'm explaining it right, but
I clearly don't get it. It looks to me like 7,448 just disappeared. I don't see where it's showing back up. To me, it should show up back as an unallocated amount because it was allocated, it wasn't spent, it should be returned to unallocated amount. The bionitrogen grant of $1 million should have been completely unaffected and unrelated. If we need to add another column in here to show money going back to unallocated amount, we might want to consider that. But if that's what it takes to make the numbers come out. Otherwise, it looks like we just lost $7,500.
But go ahead.
Was your opening? Go back to your opening statement. Are you proposing? You have transferred this money. Are you proposing this to be approved as a transfer?
Yes.
Are you showing them these numbers subject to their approval?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you don't have the prior numbers. You don't have where that money was. And you're looking as if you approved a transfer of the remainder in that account to the bionitrogen account, I believe is what you're saying.
Correct.
I will tell you that one of my conversations with Mark Cox has been to try to find a better way to present this information to the board. It is very complex. And when you have projects that have multiple income sources, and depending on the point in time in which you look at them, we may have funded them totally from the Mosaic money, and the Mosaic money is waiting to be reimbursed from the EDA. And we know we have to make some improvements in this particular aspect of reporting to the board. It doesn't affect the accounting, it doesn't affect what's on the books, it doesn't affect the audits. It just affects our ability to have a reasonable dialogue and discussion and presentation. And that's one of the reasons we really need them.
Couldn't we, and I agree with your comment, couldn't we create a allocated unused column that basically shows monies that were once allocated but weren't used for the project or weren't needed for the project, that's now shown in a separate column?
But those, yeah, if you could do that, but you still need to, at some point, return that to unallocated amount because it could be allocated for another purpose.
Well, true.
At some point.
Yeah, but if you just add the column of allocated but unused, then when we make that change, then it would come back into the other category.
Maybe, that would document it.
Instead of it just sort of hanging down at the bottom of the top of the report, to me it would make it simpler. Then the numbers would add up in the columns,
Right.
and it would be very clear to me where the monies are.
It cannot be moved if I imagine, I don't think.
No, I agree. I don't think it should. So
But
why would we?
Then the bionitrogen should go to 107,445.
But why would we do that when the request was for $2 million?
Yeah,
No.
but it wasn't. It was for $1 million.
It's only for $1 million.
Okay. Well, let me amend that. $1 million to us. So why would we make it $1.7 million?
That's what I was saying.
Okay.
Originally.
So
that was my point.
Okay. So can we create a column
Yeah.
of
That's the
allocated
problem
unused?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
that was my original point, is that correct? I can't go over the $1 million allocation because that's not what it's for. So
Okay.
you're correct, yes. We need to, I guess, obviously come up with some other or better way to show that.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Is it going to cause a problem to put this off until next month and she can talk with Mark Cox about how to do this? I mean, is this something we need to do today?
I mean,
we need to get this straightened out.
well, basically, what you're doing today is approving the $200,000
That's all we're doing?
amendment for JDC phosphates.
Okay.
That's the only.
Okay,
new
I
addition
make
to
a
this.
motion we do that.
Okay. And then we can fix this other in a trackable format.
Right.
Once we have,
Even-
Wicks
even-
Brown come in and set our books at, GASB standards and get everything on board, we can actually essentially do away with this. This is something that Bill and I just pretty much put into place as a way for us to, be able to understand where these monies were going, because prior to now, our books have not been in GASB form. We have not had the classes allocated out. And so there was no good way for the board to be able to see where you were spending your money for projects. So we basically have come up with this spreadsheet to track the projects. But now with having Wicks Brown come in and being able to set up those books properly, essentially you should be able to do away with this entire sheet altogether, and we will be able to do it in our QuickBooks system.
Do we keep records of our EDA money that goes out?
Yes, sir.
Well,
Definitely.
do we have another sheet, a sheet like this, or is it in another format?
Those show on your financials
Oh, okay.
whenever you get the financials.
So, but both of them show on the financials.
They do. That's what I'm saying. I wanted to just be able to show you, right, yes, you can see all of these numbers on your financials, but it wasn't done in an easy way for you to say, okay, yes, I can clearly see that we allocated $250,000 to National Solar. So this really isn't an official financial document. It was more of a way for me to just come to you so you could see it kind of laid out a little bit simpler rather than your financial statements, to see where your allocations were.
All right, we have a motion to approve this as amended from Donald for this $200,000. Correct?
Correct.
We have a second for that? Second. Motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, sign.
Public comment.
I would say this, that because of the action that we took today with changing the contract to JDC Development, I think when we approve the final draft of the contract next month, we can approve the allocation of that money. It doesn't have to happen, and it would actually be better from an auditing standpoint to have the motion and the appropriation of money. We've been trying to do that, so I'd just rather have all of it done.
Well, we just did it.
Well, did you vote?
Yeah.
We voted.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Let me say this as a matter of operation in the future. When we do these things, if we can approve with an appropriation, then we will have the identifying funding source in the appropriation. And it's just one of those complex things, and we will have you some templates that will be better, but they are going to be a work in progress, because there is no real answer to doing it. It's going to have to be something that each of you understands and the public understands.
We've moved this and voted on it. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. I don't want to use 3 minutes. The subject is the budget for the IDA projects. First of all, I want to thank Director Durance for bringing up a couple of points. He would like a breakout. He would like to take the audit report from the last presentation and review it for a month. I think that's great. I'd like to thank Sarah for bringing up the fact that PACER only created 12 jobs instead of 15. I think that's great. If you divide 15 jobs into 60,000, that's $4,000 per job. I guess the question is, of course, that's high according to the standard. If you look at the standard money per job for the state and the country, that's still high. But it's quite a bit lower than Continuum Labs. If they do bring 44 people in here, the cost will be $164,000 per job. Rapid Systems cost per job was $200,000. Just a couple more comments on her presentation on the budget in general. $74,000 for chamber marketing. I don't know what you're spending the money on. It looks like it's for promotional public relations items, and hiring a communication coordinator. I don't know what that person does other than just promote the IDA to the public. I think the marketing money is supposed to be out there looking for jobs and economic development. I don't think it's being used for that. The fiber optic from ONA to $500,000 was a big number. That number was pulled out of the air. There was no research, feasibility, nothing done. And now it's due to somebody's research, which I'd like to see that. It's now $250,000. Is there going to be an RFP on bringing over fiber or whatever from ONA? Got to be a good one, because it's a lot of money. The Blue Water, $2.5 million. You just can't say that that's done. There was never a closeout. No evaluation at all in that company, at all. Just a single page of big numbers with nothing below it. You already addressed the $7,400, and I thought Mr. Jensen did a good job of finding that error and pointing it out. Thank you.
We try to be real short.
Yeah, really? Okay.
I just kind of echoed quite a bit of what he would say, and I won't be re-saying it, but I do got a question. I turned in some very decently written, formal requests about this ONA thing. I got zilch. The answer I got was, we're not going to do it. Something she just said, well, we may not need it. But the real thing to me, I'm understanding we don't even own that. That some other counties own it, and we're fighting about it and all that. So why are we even talking about that?
It's a good question. Why are you talking about it?
Yeah. You guys are talking about it. The reason I'm talking about it.
Okay.
The other thing I would like to say, my main thing when I got up here a while ago, I just about fall out of my chair. Maybe I've been missing things. This gentleman is using his head. Rick is. You all kind of get together and use your heads and working things out. Amazing. I love it.
Okay, we've got this approved by motion. We'll come back and adjust, Sarah, next month on the breakout. Anything else for Sarah? Board? Thank you, ma'am.
I think I have the next item too.
Okay, you are.
All right, the next item is your public records request policy. This is something that you did review last month, and we had a discussion at the workshop about it. We have taken it and tailored it to our organization. All of those changes have been made, and Ken Evers has looked over this and is aware of the document, and basically we just need a vote to approve and implement this policy.
this is what we're mirroring from the local board of county commissioners. And they got that, if I remember correctly, from the Highlands County Board, which
Correct.
had been approved.
Yeah. So we just basically took the counties and tailored it to us and put our
names
into it.
Any discussion from the board? We looked at the one from the county last month, if you recall. And they, I think what happened is they took out where it said Board of County Commissioners and put.
Yes.
Yeah, just changed the name. Any other discussions? Any questions? Do I hear a motion? Have a motion to accept. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Wait a minute. Please, sir. Sorry for the interruption, but you get a big rush there.
We've got a time limit here to get this out. If you've got something positive to say, please say it. Don't just say the same thing over and over.
It's not positive.
It never is.
You guys are adopting a policy. You was not supposed to be charging until you adopted this policy. I got ripped off severely for $105 that you guys owed me because you wasn't even supposed to be charging me from what I'm understanding before you get this policy in place. And if you had a policy in place, it was still a rip-off. I went through this with Sandy. We took a $400 request down to about $20. I've explained to the girls and Bill how it can be done. I'm just a moron, but anyways, you ripped me off, you owe me money. Are you going to give it to me?
No, sir.
We followed the statute when
Yes.
coming up to those figures for Mr. Kirkland's public records request. It doesn't state in statute that you have to have a policy in place before charging for those documents, and we followed the rate per hour and per copy that was designated in the statute.
Hey, there's two, Henry Coleman program. There's two sides to this public records policy. There's a side on the requesters, the public asking for records. Just in relation to what Ms. Fallon said, I do believe that at your workshop last meeting that an attorney here was from Tampa or Sarasota. I think he said that until you have a policy in place, you can't charge for documents. I think that's what he said. You might want to check that.
That was his opinion.
You might want to check that. You hired him. You brought him in here.
We're not changing what we've done.
You brought him in here.
We're not changing what we've done. Contrary to what you believe.
Then you need to change your trainers because they're lying to you.
Thank you very much.
No. What I really wanted to say was the new MO for the IDA now is if you put in a request for public records, it's acknowledged the same day. I have I don't know 3 or 4 or 5 of them into Ms. Dixon right now. She'll acknowledge them the same day, then that's the last you hear from it. So there's two sides to this stuff. You can make rules on what people have to do and the formats and stuff, but you really, the law is really on the side of the public. The onus is upon you as the IDA board and staff to follow your policy and follow the law. More important than your policy is 119. That is what dictates what has to be done, what the rights of the public are, and what the consequences are for public officials and their agencies not following the law. That's what your policy should attend to. Thank you.
Where did we wind up before we were
ready to call for a vote?
Yeah, we need to call for a vote on this. Approval of public records request policy. We're mirroring what the county has already approved, who mirrored what Highlands County had already approved. Any further discussion, questions from the board?
Yeah, I'd just like to try to get a handle on, from Bill or Sarah or somebody. We're having a lot of these requests. How long does it usually take us to get these things out? Is there a problem there still, or I know we've talked about it before?
Depends on the nature of the request. really.
Say again?
It depends on the nature of the request as far as the time frame goes, honestly. I mean, it's it.
What's the average? 5 days, 3 days, 7?
Christy,
do you have any idea?
Do you have an average of how long it's taking
Maybe
you?
2 to 3. Like it depends.
4 weeks on mine.
Well,
2 to 3
it
days.
may
3
take
days
4
average.
weeks if the request is changed or
Right.
ended.
Right.
It takes a little bit longer.
20 minutes.
There are a couple of issues related to public records. If it's worded in such a way that it has to be redacted, then we have to go through every email and check to make sure that records that can't be released as per Florida law are not somehow placed in an email. And you know as well as I do on many email streams, there can be 8 or 10 emails. Well, you have to go back through and read every one of them. And it is really very time consuming. So we try to do them as quickly as we can. The law says in a reasonable period of time. Well, what is reasonable? It's not like our preference would be able to turn them out the same day, but to use due care, it's hard. And it's just the way it is. So.
Also, you need to understand that we have an office to run. We can't drop everything that's going, every request that comes in, and throw down what we do in our office to make sure that we get those things done. And if we have to go that route because of the massive amounts of public records requests, then possibly we need to hire someone just to do that.
I just had a question, Mr. Lambert. You mentioned that you're redacting, you're going through all emails and redacting.
We have to check them for information that should be redacted.
But what information would that be?
Well, we don't know. We have
No, just give me an example. What would be redacted?
Social Security.
a Social Security, a bank account number, a medical record, anything along those lines. And if we mistakenly give you information in a public records request that was not properly redacted, we are guilty. And we're trying to use due care in that respect.
Let me give you the example of when I am working with Pacer. They are submitting documents to me that do have personal employee information on there, and it is coming to me in an email. So if, for instance, that particular time frame is being requested in a public records request for emails, we have to go through and we're going to have to redact out all of the information pertinent to those employees. And so it is very real. It does happen. I do work with companies that on occasion are providing information to me that have their employees' private information.
But you're not talking about redacting what you would consider or define as would be like confidential information. I'm not talking about personal information like Social Security numbers. You're not redacting what you consider to be confidential or proprietary information out of these emails, right?
Well,
are you? Well, let me ask you this. Did you, on Mr. Kirkland's 4-week, it took you guys 4 weeks to fulfill his request? 4 weeks.
I don't think it took 4 weeks.
And Ms. Pelham told me that they had to go through and remove the confidential information. That's what she said. And
I don't know of anything that was removed. I know that we spent an awful lot of time reading that information. But I do not know if anything was removed. I would also say to you that the period of time for which the request was made,
2 months.
2 months, but it was at a period of time in which the EDC and the EDO was operating strictly as a 501c3 nonprofit.
Oh, wait, no.
Yeah. We did not merge until 2012.
Sunshine?
Well, that's up for debate in that particular instance.
And a special district, but
No, if it was, no, you're incorrect in that respect. And we have the prerogative to enter into NDA agreements with certain businesses that are not the same as 288.075 confidentiality agreements as a special district. There are 2 levels of standards here.
this is the first time you've mentioned this. So
Well, I'm just telling you, part of the reason it's taking so much time.
Taking out Social Security numbers.
Well, there is
now
a.
you've gone from Social Security numbers to
Are-
what you
did you-
consider to
Are
be
we through with him?
confidential.
Yeah, let's quit arguing.
We're not going to argue about this. We're not going to argue about this.
The subject is a public.
We're through with this.
And we
I
had a
wanna know what your
workshop.
policy is.
We had a
and we
workshop
public
you never
workshop
showed.
To discuss the
I
matter.
was in.
And-
Hey, that's not our problem.
No,
We-
it
we've
is.
already
know, no, it's not our
had
problem.
Mr. Coleman and
Hey,
we've-
All right, we're moving on. Please sit down, Mr. Coleman. Thank you.
Well, I would like.
We're not going there
Mr.
anymore.
Lambert told me he took something out, and I would like to find out.
We want to know what you took out.
I did not say that I
No,
took
you didn't.
anything out. We had to read to make sure that we did not have contractual non-disclosure agreements or confidentiality agreements, and to my knowledge, nothing was removed.
There was nothing
Me
removed
and
in
another
your
man stood
request.
there when I asked him a question. And you
You're going to sit down and we're going to
You're
take this,
calling
we're going to move
off
on. You need to
out.
sit down, sir.
I have a witness.
You need to be quiet. We're going to move on and we're going to remove
And that
you
is
from this
not,
room.
that, a record of my colonoscopy is not a public record.
You took it out. If you put it in the public computer, it's public record.
If you took it out, you
No,
have
it
to
is
make
not.
note of that. You got to make a note of what you took out.
We're through with this. We're through. If you've got issues to take up, that's why we have a court system. Please sit down, Mr. Coleman. Please sit down, Mr. Coleman.
I'll give it to you, Frank.
Did we vote on this?
I don't think so.
Not yet.
We've had a motion and a second, if I recall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Opposed? Thank you.
Okay. Next policy is Office Policies and Procedures Manual. We discussed this as well at the workshop. We have since gone back and formulated a policy of which you did receive in your packet. If you have any questions about it, we'll be glad to answer those. It's a pretty standard office policy and procedure manual. The county does have one as well. It's pretty similar to theirs. It's not as lengthy as theirs because there's quite a bit of information that does not pertain to us in their particular policy, but this is a pretty standard policy, so if you would like to go over it, we can. It's basically nothing different than what you discussed in the workshop to approve.
What did we decide to do about the health insurance thing?
We are still getting quotes in.
So we're still going under what's in this paper?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right, as of right now, we're still
Yeah.
getting, Christy is still receiving quotes from
Okay.
different organizations or different insurance companies, as well as the payroll services that we want to kind of do an analysis of before we decide anything.
Okay.
What's the pleasure of the board on this? It's the same thing you talked about in our workshop. We went through, I think, line item by line item.
Make a motion to approve.
A second. This is a policy and procedure manual,
We've
sir.
got a big problem in that thing.
You are right. We have a big problem in this room.
In that procedure, I'm telling you, the policy.
We have a motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. We're through with that, sir. Another policy.
Okay. The last one is the rules of procedure. This is a policy that has not come before the board yet, but I asked Christy to get with Sandy and find out what the county has in place as far as rules of procedure concerning board meetings. This is a very lengthy policy. There is a lot of information in the county's policy that
All right, next up, whoa. I better wait till we get a lot back in here.
Where it is what it is.
Did one leave? No, he just made it, so he's on his way back here in a minute.
Oh, okay.
He's a little slow today.
Yeah, he's strict.
There's a waiting line in the bathroom.
Huh?
There's a waiting line in the bathroom.
Don't start running without me.
Mike, you see Diana out there? Ship her back this way, please, sir.
I didn't see her. She may have left.
Her stuff's still there.
Oh, yeah, she hadn't left. I was fixing to ask you that, but but I didn't know whether I wanted to or not. You got a bottle there in front of you.
There's a line.
There she is. All right, we'll get cranked back up. Next on the agenda is a Continuum Labs update.
Just two things before I wanted to mention before Travis makes his presentation. Is in last month's meeting, I did mention that we had a 6-month review meeting in regards to Continuum and the contract. It was myself, Mr. Vaughn, Mr. Hernandez, and Mr. Evers. I did indicate last month that we would be coming back this month with a full report on that. However, because of several other things that have filled my agenda personally, we have not had time to come back with a written report at this time. Fully intend to do it next month, but did want to acknowledge it since I said last month we would be doing that. Additionally, I know that there's been some talk about an extension. Travis, based on his contract, he has to have his draw request in by the 30th of the month, each month, for the previous month. However, because of extenuating circumstances, Travis asked myself for an extension into turning in his draw request. And the nature of that extension, I felt warranted to grant him his request. He has never been late before in his request, and I feel certain that he will not be late again. But because of the circumstances that were surrounding the request for extension, I did grant that to him. Because that has been acknowledged and talked about in the public, I did want to mention it to the board prior to us moving forward. So I'll let Travis go ahead and make his presentation.
Thank you very much, Casey. Thank you, Board, Commissioner Thompson. Thank you for your time. I want to say thank you for the extension. There was a medical emergency that was unforeseen. Actually, it was a severe medical diagnosis that required somebody to have immediate attention. And that person held a lot of the data that was required. You know, I wish that you all could have been here, well, most of you, in Tampa yesterday. And we had an event there that was put on by Hillsborough County's EDC. And I would say of all the events that I've ever been to, and there were people from Hardy there as well, it was MetaFuture 2013. All talk about economic development. Brought in a keynote speaker, 2 of them, one on the front and one on the back. The first one was Clayton Christensen, PhD, Harvard, State, Rhodes Scholar, whole 9 yards. Brilliant man, in his 60s, written several books. The man is held as a genius when it comes to economics, business, innovation, and so forth. He outlined 3 phases that our economy goes through and that it has gone through since the 1800s. He has gone back and said and documented there have been 9 recessions since World War II. And the first several took 6 months to recover to a previous level. Then it went from 15, then it went from 20, went to 30. We're at 60-something and still going and not back at previous. And he outlines why. And he asks why this has anything to do with the healthcare conference. It has everything to do. Because the first phase of business, why we're here as Americans, is we were disruptors. We came in with innovative thoughts. That is why people want to come to this country. We disrupt, we empower. We do things that other nations are just now starting to do. Do you know that in Japan after World War II they had nothing? Obviously, bombed out, obliterated economy. They started making what we now know as the moped and the little Honda machine. Within 20 years they had 0 unemployment. Because what did they do? They poured all the capital from the other nations that were helping them to rebuild into new businesses, into new technologies. And what did they do? In 25 years, they shipped over the Corolla, killed GM. Why? Because GM was at a phase of efficiency. And at efficiency, what do? You maximize profits. And when you maximize profits, you get bankers, VCs, and others that say, what's the internal rate of return? What's the return on assets? What are these various ratios, most of which have a time as their denominator? So everything is measured over a faster and faster time. Japan, unfortunately, sent a lot of our children to our MBA programs in the 60s and 70s. They began to then take their industry and hit for efficiency to maximize profit. Their economy has stalled since 1990. They have been displaced by who? Taiwan, China. We went through illustrations in our mining industry here. We had what would be equivalent to build a mixed mined plant is $10 billion that you can mine all different forms of metals, from rebar all the way up to sheet metal that makes cars, which are the most complex, and each have a profit margin. China created electric furnaces that you could fit right about there. Can make really good, can make cheap steel quickly, but it wasn't of good quality. So they came in at the rebar market. The rebar market then had a 12% margin. So the big $10 billion plant said, look, we're going to get out of here because they can make rebar cheaper than we can. So we're going to go to angle iron. We're going to go to the bigger stuff. So what happened to the 20% efficiency that people got with their electric furnaces? Their customers say, no, we know you have a 20% efficiency, therefore we want what? A 20% reduction in the price you sell it to us. So then other people have to come in and they went up to angle iron. And then people that weren't angle iron went to I-beams, and then I-beams went to structural beams that were even bigger, and then everybody's now in a race of sheet metal for cars. Do you know how many factories we have built in the last 100 years for steel? None. The reason is because when you get locked up into creating efficiencies in an existing technology, an existing sector, whether it's citrus, cows, anything, what happens is it becomes a race for efficiency. More profit per person per unit. It then spends off capital, to which then banks use, and they loan out for other things. But the thing is that when you start capital for what are the riskier investments, which are what? The disruptors. That is two things that a disrupting company creates. It uses capital. Matter of fact, in the beginning of our centuries, we were encouraged to waste capital for the sense of getting innovation. The other things that what do disruptive companies create? Jobs. You need people. So now you go through 3 phases to get to efficiency. You go from the disruptors to the maturing to the efficiency. You know what happens to cash inflow or capital and jobs when you get to the middle growth curve? None. Balance sheets become level, debt comes off, things get equalized. Investors come in and say, we want to maximize revenue. We want to maximize profit. I want a big EBITDA. What do you start doing? Slashing jobs. You buy robots instead of people. You start doing things that do what? Take away jobs. We sat in that room, I guess there's what, 1,000 people in there. I mean, I really wish that some of the reporters that are so eager to cover the things that seem sensational would talk about the fact that, you know, the mayor and the county commission was there, and the county commissions from all the cities around it was there to do one thing, disrupt healthcare. When we talk about healthcare, do we really remember that that is an industry that starts with a T, not a B? It's $1 trillion industry. Do we realize all of the work that we have done in the last year and a half to try to partner up Hillsborough County with Hardin County, with the STEM bills, with all the efforts that we're doing, that we came here a year and a half ago with what? A public-private partnership opportunity to use capital to create jobs, to be disruptive. My God in heaven. It was amazing to sit there in the keynote speech and find that a Harvard PhD who's written 6 books on the topic was talking about continuing. He was talking about what you guys have done here. So I think that some of the gentlemen that sit here and opine and give you a hard time about investing, yes, you should spend capital when you have it as fast as you can have it with the best degree of risk mitigation you can. But if you don't spend it, you will be like the efficiency business. It's sitting on cash, but you'll have no jobs. The point of it is about investing in infrastructure. You do that in Rapid Systems. I will tell you, I don't know a lot about how many jobs it created, what their balance sheet looks like. But if we did not have internet, I would not be at this podium today. Because we wouldn't have staff, we wouldn't have people that have computers at home and spend their life in technology. That trait that they spend their own amount of time as an individual growing into the things that are going on around them in the world. Internet is a basic commodity. And so I have probably at least two or three different ways to get on the internet within either my person right here or in that backpack. That was a disruptive technology started out of universities. So I know that I took up some of my time and I won't make my other stuff quick, but the point of it is that I and a lot of other people that are a lot smarter than me will call some of the people, the comments that they've had about spending your money as soon as you get it and about investing into new technologies, they're wrong. And it's not my opinion. It is the fact that there are others that sit there and say, we're still 60 months later trying to crawl out of recession because we don't have disruptive technologies in our country to create new jobs. You can't lead with a rear view mirror. That was the guy's opening comment. So yes, it does have risk. I have risk in this. My employees have risk in this. Partners have a risk in this. But it is about disruptive technologies and building partnerships. So let me tell you what we're doing to continue the last month. We have gone through and we have released several code pushes, what we call is version numbers that you would see on the internet as a general user. We were excited and felt that we hit a really big plateau, or no, I'm sorry, let me strike that. We had a real breakthrough when we were able to use our platform, our API, to sync up our web care sync platform to now a mobile platform. Many of you had heard that we did a grand opening that coincided with the Relay for Life on April 26th. 2 things that we did there. That product in its state has been available since last year. And anybody that would go to mybluewater.com to log on or to caresync.com log on, pages rather, can log on and would have seen the software. What we did, though, was majorly different, and it's what you have to do, is you have to go and prove your product out to the masses to get people to break it in ways that you don't think they'll break it. And we did that for 6 months. We now added mobile, which is critical. Does anyone think, how many people have smartphones? Steve Jobs used to be called an idiot. When Microsoft was running in one direction, he created a phone with a computer. People thought he was an idiot. That's innovation. That's disruption. Apple Corporation has more cash than the United States. They're sitting on $130 billion. Matter of fact, they're getting so much flack that they're actually going to spend $50 billion in distributions because the stockholders are saying, look, you're sitting on so much, you're sort of breaking the economic rule that you've been so successful. But that was an innovative technology. So we launched that mobile. It has been awesome. It has been great. We'll go on and tell you more about that. Nobody's left. I've said this before. This is a spiritual battle here. Don't know why. Don't have all the great insight to figure it out why. But we have not lost any men off the boats. And so I am proud of them, and I want to thank you. We have added some interns, some other contractors that work during the nights, supplement their family incomes. All of our new hires have been here in Hardin County, and we love them. One of the things that we were asked to do well back during the assignment was to create a university program. It's different in that it doesn't mimic a university program of a nature that follows a community college or something, because those classes meet once a week or something to this effect. They're not very specific to what you're trying to do. I'm proud to announce that as of 2 weeks ago, we had published an online syllabus, like I said in our last meeting. People signed up. You will not see people here from Continuum today because they're all in class right now. We feel at this point their CEO can come here and give you your presentation, and communications director and VP of marketing can as well. But the point of it is that we're using training to reinforce the momentum to disrupting technology. And I will tell you that in the history of this planet, it has always been infinitely easier to tear down than it is to build or create. And so I will tell you that we have done a lot of wonderful things. I think Rapid Systems, they were out there busting their butts last week to be certain that we had enough internet in a secure way for our university to be separate from our development pipelines, so that we felt comfortable that everybody had their own secure way to get onto the internet, from whether if you're just coming and having a sandwich at the cafe, or whether you're a student at the technology park, or whether you're one of the tenants. And that has all been in place. And so today was our first class in the classroom. And so I want to thank people from actually the community signed up as well. One of the things that we were asked to do, and I believe it's important, but it's not always on the agenda of a new company, and that is to really be in the community that you've partnered with. And that takes, you can't pay people to come to an event on Friday night, and you can't pay them to build booths and stuff on Thursday nights. It's about commitment. I think we were one of the major, newcomers there. We had a great presence. Everybody showed up. We walked around the track. We did the things that we did because we are passionate about healthcare. And we have had some people in our company that have been diagnosed, and they are cancer survivors. And it means a lot to us because we're a healthcare company. Bond Technologies was a disruptor. It took capital, it created jobs, and it made money. I've always felt strongly about this project as well. It has created jobs, it has used capital, and it will continue to make money. But at the same time, if you can't create family, if you can't create a job that's really worth coming to, then it just seems like you're punching the clock. And while I'm CEO, that's not our culture. I am telling you that we are making a shift, or have made a shift, and I'm announcing it to you. We have turned all our guns and efforts to CareSync. I will not disclose individually what our profit margins and our expectations are supposed to be, but I will assure you, after a long analysis by multiple people over multiple days, clearly CareSync as a revenue generator and a job creator is certainly the best of breeds of the technologies that we have or use. And so we will not be hearing any more about Dashes or Dashes Pro or Scoutware or even Dossier, because we believe that it is best to focus on a singular project with all the effort that we can. We know what we're doing in healthcare. We are the only family health record. We are about family health collaboration. And when people are sick and need to share information, that's important. How are we going to do that? So you will see that we're going to focus a lot more attention on the positive, because we have product, we have people, and they are working on a great product. We are partnering with people like USF. We are partnering with 4 already rare disease companies. We have already partnered with SmartRx, and we are in the pilot for an IRB for the villages. Villages is 3 times the size of the residents in Hardee County alone, all behind one place. CareSync, it's in the villages, it's coming. When people are taking their pill bottles and they miss a pill or whatever, they're going to get a notification on handheld. And if that doesn't work, guess what? They get a call from Tech River. You could not have said that 2 years ago. I mean, despite everybody's differences, I respect the heck out of all of you in that you have made the investment to stay the course and do something that's disruptive in something you're not already doing. You are diversifying your portfolio. You are creating new jobs to which your youth want jobs in. And it's technology, good, bad, or indifferent. People like me live with our computers and our iPhones. We understand, we talk and collaborate with ones and zeros and graphics and pretty pictures, and we don't go to bed until we've updated Facebook. It is our generation. But also we have the elder population, baby boomers are aging. We are now in an epidemic for obesity, for diabetes, for so many chronic diseases that are sitting there and creating unprecedented amount. Do you know the United States is so far on any graph per person that is spent on healthcare than anywhere around the planet that the graph actually has to be extended upwards to show it? I saw that yesterday. I was amazed. I was amazed. And then we're not even on the efficiency graph. We're just really high and in the middle. Obamacare is going to change and has changed the landscape. Remember, and I say this because it's so important. I feel like sometimes I don't give you the facts to sit there and be able to repeat. But do you remember that in September of last year, in 12, September 30th, if you left the hospital sick and still came back, that was a revenue source for the hospital. On October 1st, if you left sick, you come back, you're on a liability. That went from the income statement directly to debt, to basically an unrealized liability. United Healthcare was there yesterday. Blue Cross Blue Shield was there yesterday. Baycare was yesterday. Moffitt was there yesterday. They are saying that between the next 4 years, the entire model of healthcare is turned upside down. I pray that we continue to stay the course, build technologies that have the human element as well as the technology element, because then you have an environment like healthcare, which makes up 18% of our gross national product, going through chaos. Don't you think that that creates a ton of opportunity? So we're going to put forth all our effort in getting our word out. We have good technology. We have great people. We continue to add new people in terms of thought leadership. And you know the nice thing about it? It came on without asking for any income. People believe in what we do. And I respect the heck out of them for that. And some really smart people. We're now beginning to build our board. And so a board of directors that are some of the most prestige people in Hillsborough County and beyond in healthcare technology. You'll be very impressed when I'm ready to announce them. All right, one last question. We have been asked questions of myself and Casey, I believe, I'm not speaking of her, about the line items for training and mentoring. Remember that this is a format that we gave. It was a good effort to sit there and, as Jim said, I want you to be accountable for the money. We broke it up into many categories, and our reports are anywhere between 30 and 50 pages a month. We have tried in good effort to sit there and say that we're being a good steward of your money. So here's how we come up with training and mentoring. We take a percentage based upon the timesheets, based upon what the employees tell their reporting directors on how much time they have spent in either training on a new skill or working and training and creating the new program at Tech River, and or what they've now taken a skill that somebody just learned and mentoring that into some maturation to where now they can be independent to some degree. Those percentages range from anywhere from 0 to 30, depending upon the department. We take that number, we multiply it by the number of hours they're contracted to work per year or per week, and that's 45 and a half, or 45. You add up that, you get a couple hundred hours or something after you multiply it by the 4.2 weeks that are in a year. That's how we came up with it. I will tell you that the things that we've also been in those numbers is when we're building the building, not building it per se, but the fact that we spend time on building Tech River University and the infrastructure that comes from that, and that we've been building the programs and the curriculum that you now can see online. We now have professors that are there right now teaching the classes, and that figure is going to go in there. But from now on, we're going to shift those numbers to development. We're proud of our people. So you'll see a training line that's strictly for the university, and the rest is we do two things and two things only right now. Continue to make great technology, and we're going to sell it and market it to a national audience. So for percentages, I know that many of you have asked for that. We spend about 46% in development. Ideally, I'd like that to be a lot higher, because that's what we disrupted. We spend right at the same amount here in Hartford on whether it's the employees, the training, the mentoring, traveling to get here, office supplies that they buy here, 46%. I guess it's about 8% that's rounding between various, minor costs. I thank you for your time and your patience. we have, I think, tried to evolve with the program that I know that you took out with great energy and excitement, and we're all sort of figuring the 119, 159s. We have had to take education on trade secret provisions under 288.075. We've had to learn some laws that I didn't have to, quite frankly, know about, because healthcare typically doesn't get the sophisticated onslaught of haters. But I can assure you, tanks are gassed, the guns are loaded, we're focusing on making software, and we're not going to be passive in not protecting our investment. And when I say ours, I mean yours and ours as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. Casey, did you have anything you wanted?
I don't have anything unless anybody has any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Bond from the panel, from the commission, our authority? Thought you had some questions, Donald.
Not about this. I got a bunch about the financials when we get to it from last month. But I will ask him one question. He mentioned Obamacare. If they repeal Obamacare, then how would that affect you?
That is a great question. I wish I got more of those, because I think that that's a really great strategy question. You can repeal laws, but you can't repeal behavior. And now, even if this thing in some way is overturned, you have had a multi-billion-dollar industry gear itself up for so many things they can't unwind it. But remember, we have like stakeholders. That's a big, long word to say who would buy from us. The fact of it is, you have an educated public that's getting sicker. They want technology. Obama just gives us deep whales. Our enterprise sales, when they book contracts, those will be 1 million to maybe even 50 million. Those are just bigger fish. But the individual, the $5 a month that it is for the subscription for the software, once they're able to manage their appointments and their visits, Obamacare is just, it's kind of like hearing about 119 from a gentleman in the audience. Like, whatever. You know, the fact of it is, I'm sick, my wife's sick, we need to coordinate care, and Junior's got a disease. Everything else sort of slides away. But that is a good question. That's why, shoot, that's why we're here, right? I mean, we said back in September that I wanted to diversify. You know, I wanted enterprise, I wanted individuals, and I wanted physicians. I want to know that if any one of those change on me in some way, that we made a technology and a services. We will certify our medical records experts in Tech River. And let me just take this because I forgot to mention this. You know, the mining is a great sort of analogy here, right? Those cranes and those dredges and all those things are not made here. They were made somewhere else, right? But they came here to get something that was valuable, and they created jobs while they're doing it. Now, regardless of how one feels about that politically, the metaphor works in that we are creating a workforce, which now the villages and other people are even recognizing is important. There is trillions of dollars trapped in paper files, in physicians' computers, and hospital basements. This data that is on us as individuals in the United States is no different than the phosphate trapped in the ground. That is why we're building an infrastructure here so that people will go and get that data and put it into a computer program that their families now can use to control their health care. Can I answer your question?
Thank you.
Any other questions from the panel? I'm sure you've got a question, Mr. Coleman.
Thank you. Would it be possible for me to ask questions?
You got 3 minutes. Talk on.
Okay, well, let me make a couple of comments first. I don't know why when I get up here I get 3 minutes, and Mr. Vaughn gets up here, he can get 3 hours. He can talk about anything he wants.
Because he's on the agenda and you're not.
I call it the 90-10 rule. 90% of the things that this man says, and it was
3 minutes are running.
Listen, I'm talking, you listen. It's my 3 minutes.
I'm the chairman. We'll both talk and listen.
You're supposed to be
give him 3 minutes.
on the subject of continuum labs. You should recuse yourself, Mr. C. She should be chairing this portion.
We're just discussing, we're not voting. Your 3 minutes are running.
The 90-10 rule. If you get up here and talk 90% of the time about something that has nothing to do with the big fat red elephant in the room, which is the revenue problem. How many users are in CareSync right now? It launched on the 26th of April. The 26th of May is coming up. $5 a month, $20 a month, $39.99 a month. I mean, I think it's a little late in the game to be switching all of your resources to marketing a product, a one product company that I have seen many times, and frankly, I mean, the theory sounds great. The application of that software, I just don't get it. You know, that's my personal opinion. I'm very anxious to hear somebody tell me that the revenue is going to pour through the door at the same rate that the money runs out. There's only 1 month left. I think next month he's going to come back and want to see the 1.6 mil that's left in that kitty. We didn't talk about that. Disruptors, yes, he's a disruptor, and so am I. Waiting for my 3 minutes to get up. I think when you talk about mentoring training and you're pulling this stuff out of thin air and you're coming up with some kind of an estimate on percentages how much of the time that we book is going for mentoring training, and you're coming up with these big numbers. I don't get it. I also want to know if Ken Lambert is getting money, or his company he works for is getting money from Mr. Bond or Continuum Labs or any form of public money that's coming out of my pocket.
Let me answer that question blatantly. No.
Thank you. There was a rumor I just needed to put to bed.
You might should control your rumors a little better.
Yeah, I would. It's a rumor, like I said. Thank you for answering that. Thank you.
Yeah, you.
I don't want to break the permission rule. I listened to Mr. Bonds, and I've never heard anything any more upside down or backwards or whatever. He's talking about just throw the money at it. Business, there's several things that control business. You have to have a market. You have to have a supply. You have to have a demand. And you can make some boo-boos. I've been there, I've done that. I had a pretty decent sized auto parts business one time. For an example, I decided to add a pretty expensive line of product to my business. It was automotive paint. I wasn't smart enough, and the fools that sold it to me wasn't smart enough to do a market study. I put $12,000 in automotive paint, and I probably sold $50 worth of paint. Throw the rest away. But that was just one part of my business, but that's just an example for one of those things. But look at the way government actually makes business operate. When I went in business, I want to have the biggest parts store in this part of Florida, have the most inventory, because I came from a town, Orlando, where the stores that done that were the ones that were busy. But then I get business, my accountant says, you can't have all of this inventory, and you can't keep growing it. Government, you have to pay taxes on that stuff. So if you go to Walmart's, you go in there and you buy something one day and then you can't buy again the next week. Why? Because it didn't turn over in so many days. They discontinue it, their computers discontinue it, and then you can't buy what you used to buy in there. There's a lot of things that control business. I don't have a lot of education, but I understand a lot about that thing you're looking at. And I don't see the demand to start with for what they've been talking about all along. Just somebody to tell me how to take a pill out of a bottle and all these different things. I don't see that demand there. But at some point, you need to be looking for a return on the money. The way I see it, you're putting 100% of everything it costs. They have
it's free enterprise for them. They just open a business and go. And maybe we're gonna have to get up here and apologize one day because they invent something that's gonna be fantastic. But this is public money. The kind of things he's talking about should be done with private money. Let them stick their necks out. My accountant told me the first question when a person comes to him about going into business.
Your time's up, Mr. Kirkland.
I'll give me just a couple seconds.
Your time's up.
And he says,
your time's up,
you have to be willing.
Mr. Kirkland, your time's up.
Okay, thank you, sweetheart.
Sweetheart, I'm impressed.
That's it.
The only two brief project updates. I would like Major Day to give us a quick report on the first official usage of the Sheriff's Command Center. Major Day?
I can do something constructive.
Yes, thank you.
Friday, we launched one of our first major operations out of the building. As most of you know, we had a smaller place for my special detectives to meet and conduct their business. And anytime we had an operation, the entire county would know that we were getting ready to do an operation. Anytime you put 20, 30 police cars in one spot, they seem to know something's going to happen. The new facility has allowed us to put this together where it's not out in the open, where you can see when we're getting ready to do this operation. We did carry it out, arrested 19 individuals on drug charges out of 27 warrants, and all these warrants were done and cases made since being in this new building. We've also moved our backup dispatch, which is up and operational. If we have a setback at the main facility where our dispatch goes down, we're able to immediately move and have a full, complete backup dispatch, which we did not have before. The building's working out very well. Any questions?
Comment. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Have you got a generator out there yet?
Yes, we do. It's a military generator that was given to us by the county.
Good.
Surplus, and it runs very well. It has to be manually started, which we do. So it's set up. We have deputies now going in and out of the building. I'm sure you've seen a car or two down there, hopefully by now. And so the tenants in the complex has actually come by and appreciates us being there.
That's right.
I don't blame them. I bet they would.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will have a report for you on the various costs, and I don't know if we'll have the bids back by next month related to the culvert replacement at the Commerce Park. We have met with engineers and we're working on the best way to replace the culvert so we can begin expanding the road through the balancing part. So that will be forthcoming, and at the late date, I think most everything else has been covered in the meeting today. So we'll move on, I suppose, to the financial report. Sarah?
All right, if you'll turn to page 9, your profit and loss. As of April, we had taken in $49,500 in grants. All of that money represents a draw request to the EDA for our EDC operations grant that we have. We also collected $1,000 in rent from the city of Wauchula for office space rental. Our total income being $50,500. If you go down to the expenses for the month was a typical month. There wasn't anything particularly unusual about the month. Our total expenses were $26,141.02. The only item that came out this month that is not typical every month would be under insurance. Our workers' comp policy was paid out, and that's the $1,789 that you see in the expense category there. So other than that, it was a pretty typical month. If you go on to page 10, that starts your general ledger, and you can review that when you have time. just showing the copies of all of our checks that were written. Page 14 goes into the payroll summary. I'm not going to go into those pages in detail, but if you have any questions about them, I'll be glad to answer them. Page 18 takes you to the reconciliation report, and that concludes the EDC portion of the financials. So if you have any questions on EDC before I move to IDA, I'll answer those now. Otherwise, you can look over the documentation on your own. I won't go into detail on general ledger. No questions? All right, page 19 starts the IDA. That's your balance sheet, listing out all of our accounts. If you flip to page 20, I just want to go over a couple of items with you. The first line item is EDA grant and income from the Mosaic Fund. That $240,000, that was our reimbursement from the EDA. We submitted draw requests based on our EDA applications that we have for spec buildings currently under construction. And so we did make a request for reimbursement for that, and we received $240,000 back. The $105.76 that shows in miscellaneous income came in for public record requests. And then the $750,000, which is one of our largest expense items for the month, is a transfer to the Mosaic Fund for expenditures of Mosaic projects. As you know, a couple of months ago, we had to go and actually open a new disbursement account because the current Mosaic account that we had was only allowing us to do 6 transfers per month. We're writing more than 6 checks per month out of that account. So in talking with the accountants and the banks, we decided to set up a separate account just for disbursement of those funds. So now Christy is making a draw from the Mosaic account each month and putting it into the disbursement account and then writing the checks for each project directly from that account. So that was her draw going into that disbursement account. If you go down to the expenses, under professional fees, $269,000, that is for half-acre payments for their construction management on the projects that we have currently underway, PFM, for instance, Tech River building, and some of those projects. Spec Building 2 expenses, that would be the second to last line item under expenses, $139,000, almost $140,000. Those were expenses related to the PFM building and Preco. That included some items from Yana Concrete for the construction of PFM. And then the last line item was for transfers out of Mosaic, and again, that was payments going out for the PFM project as well as to pay Half Acre for their pay applications. Those are really the only significant line items that I felt needed to be pointed out and brought to your attention. If you have any other questions on any other specific item, I'll be glad to answer for you. Other than that, you can look over the rest of the material on your own. I won't go into detail on those by class.
Any other questions for Sarah? Donald, you have some questions?
I do. For last month, we didn't approve last month's financials. And all my questions I've got marked in here. So I don't know if everybody, I mean, it's probably a lot of it is stuff I just don't understand. But I don't have it marked in the one for now. I mean, we need to approve this one anyway. We didn't do it last month.
You're correct.
Do you have one for last month?
I can pull one for you in a minute.
And I'll go through. I've got some
okay.
things I don't understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
You do have them written down.
Yeah, I've got them marked, and I'll try to remember them.
Okay.
I mean, if I had time, they're probably the same things are in here. But it's probably just stuff I don't understand.
Are these under IDA, or do you have any questions?
It's under the IDA. Yeah, the first one's on page 12, the profit and loss.
Okay.
Under the Continuum Labs, it's got $584,000, and I've never seen one that high before.
It's not, and we made a notation the month before that when Christy was doing the QuickBooks, the way that the classing is set up, for some unknown reason, when she was booking the expenses, it was booking them twice. So, in a sense, it's basically taking the draw and multiplying it times 2. She since corrected that. It doesn't show like that on your financials now. So their draw was not for $584,000. That is double what it was for. Again, it was more of just a booking error when Christy was putting the information into QuickBooks.
So if we approve this today, we're going to approve this $584,000, or we got to do an amendment to change this?
No, you will. I mean, no, you're not approving $584,000.
Well, I mean, that's what it says, though.
So, that's what we made a note at the month prior that the books were showing this. It's a technical error, so that in your vote you're approving the financials with the note that the books are showing the amount being multiplied times 2, and that it has been corrected.
Okay, why would it show 2 different check numbers then? If that's a check number, is that check numbers where it says 1035 and 1014? Is that what that is? Under number, that's on page 16. It's under number. It has some numbers there. Is that the check numbers? Or is that
16,
just, yeah,
okay.
Under the general ledger?
That's lots of months.
Correct.
Is that check numbers?
1035, 1014.
Yeah.
Yes, and see, okay. See
So
how
if it's
1035 says Hardy County IDA.
Right.
Draw request.
Right.
That is when Christy is taking the money out of the Mosaic account to transfer into the disbursement fund so that she can write the check to Continuum.
Okay.
So the books were booking that twice. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When she was transferring it out of Mosaic into the disbursement fund, it was
Right.
booking it that way, and then when she writes the check to Continuum, it's taking it out. It's showing it twice. It's taking
Okay.
it out
Okay.
again.
I accept that. Okay. On page 13, under I don't know what WSB Sales is. Is that the Wauchula State Bank?
Correct.
Ooh.
Wauchula State Bank.
Ooh, where's Laura? He gone. Anyway, my question is, we've got some. I guess this is checks that were written.
On page 13?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. This is your
Okay.
general
Are we paying the electric bill at Preco?
at the Tech River building?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Is that what we're supposed to be doing?
Yes, sir.
We're paying the light bill for them.
Yes, sir.
Why?
That's.
You don't want us to?
No, they should be paying it. I mean, if they're releasing the building, they should pay the electric bill. Is the $10 a square foot, does that include electricity?
It would only be a portion of the building.
Well, we still shouldn't be paying the light bill for a renter. I mean, does the EDO office, does FL Rebels pay for our light bill at the EDO office? Or do we pay it?
How would you propose we would do that without the meter?
There's a meter on that building, and when they use the electricity, they pay the bill just like I do at my house.
I understand that.
Oh, okay.
So
Are you,
how do you propose
are you
we-
moving that we, what is it?
I'm moving that they pay the light bill.
Okay.
The tenants should pay, the leasee should pay the light bill. No, is Rapid System in there yet and Rapid Tech in there yet?
I mean,
well, the building still.
We would have to go to some different type, you probably know more about it than I do, but we would have to go to some different type of metering system than what's currently in the building to be able to separate that out between the different.
Well, I asked Bill before they moved in there about this same problem. He said they had a plan and they had it covered.
We do have a plan. The plan is that the tenants will be paid on a pro rata share of their square footage. I expect us to be to the point of really being able to prorate those electric bills between Tech River, which is being sponsored by the IDA, and Continual, and Rapid Tech and Rapid Systems. I mean, we're in the middle of a transition,
wait a minute.
and you're asking me to do something that are really just not quite at that point.
What do you mean by the Tech River is sponsored by the IDA? I hadn't heard that before.
No,
I mean, we're paying their bills?
We should be paying their bills. I mean, Tech River
is University.
It is what we're doing.
Yeah, I know that. We don't own that. I do see it here where we've got some things for, what was that? I saw that. Overhead, Tech River overhead. What is that?
That's for overhead expenses related to the building itself. Since we are the owners of the building, any expenses related to the common areas of that particular building, we are covering the costs for that.
Why?
Because it's the common areas of the building, and we own the building.
Okay, can a private citizen walk in there anytime they want to?
I don't see why not.
Okay, I just wonder.
I mean, if you're referring to that being public space,
yeah,
it's not
right.
Public space. No. It's an incubator type environment that we own the building, and these companies are the tenants of the building. So it wouldn't fall under public space like we're in a county building right now. That's not going to fall under the same guidelines.
Well, I don't agree that we should be paying the light bill or paying overhead for Tech River. That's just my opinion. All right, I'm ready to move on. Unless you got something you want to say, Bill.
That's fine.
Let me ask. I mean, this is something that I guess I just need some. I don't understand, and I need some training in. And I'm trying to find it here. But anyway, on half acre, I've been asking for information for half acre for the last 2 meetings, and I haven't gotten that yet. But now, the way half acre works is, if I understand it, is that we get a price of a building, say $1.5 million. They agree, I guess, to build a spec building for $1.5 million.
They're not building it. They don't sell.
No. Okay, but they say they can build it for a certain amount.
They come up with a budget. They don't say they can build it. They would bid out that particular portion.
Yeah, I know. They're the manager, but we say build this building, and somebody says how much it's going to cost to build it. Now, who is that?
Well, there are multiple ways to build a building. It can be design build, construction management at risk. This board voted to hire half acre under project management.
I understand that.
So they basically would be the same as if we opened a project management department within the IDA, and we hired a purchasing agent, various people that are competent in the aspects of all of the project managements, or all the projects that we do. You hired Half Acre as the Industrial Development Authority to be the contracted project manager for our projects. They do it on a commission. They do not self-perform. They assimilate all the information, and at some point you could say, well, project management is too pricey for us. We need to open an entire department within the IDA and hire individual people like the city of Wauchula and the county has to do project management.
I understand that. That's not where I'm going with this. Okay. Now, the way it works is Half Acre gets all of the bids from all the contractors. They choose a bid and get them to do the work. Half Acre brings us a invoice for so much money, and then he pays the subcontractors. Is that the way it works?
90% of the time. Would you say?
There are a couple instances that we have done direct pay.
Like what?
But most of the time. The most recent one was the equipment actually going out to the sheriff's substation.
I'm talking about a spec building thing. Say PFM or PFMan, whatever it's called. Okay, a new construction like that. Okay, is that the way it works? Is that he puts in a draw to pay all the subcontractors?
Let me let Greg address that. He's here. He can address it for you.
Yes, sir. To answer your question.
Okay, you pay all the subcontractors.
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, we've got probably $300,000 or $400,000 in here for concrete from Yana. So are you paying Yana? Are we paying Yana? Or is the Yana stuff being added to the cost, another cost that a $1.5 million building is going to end up $2 million?
No, sir. When I established the guaranteed maximum price in the beginning of the job, it includes all materials and labor, taxes, and everything to complete the project under that budget. What we have set up is a direct purchase program, so that the IDA can purchase these materials directly to save tax, because you're tax exempt. So what I do is I establish the GMP, call it $1 million, and I back out the materials that the IDA wishes to purchase directly from a vendor, which would be Yana Concrete. So if that material costs $100,000, I give a deductive change order back to the IDA for $100,000 plus the tax, so that the IDA can purchase that concrete directly and save the tax, because Half Acre is not tax exempt. The IDA is. And that's the only exception that we do not pay a vendor, and that only goes to a vendor, not a subcontractor. The subcontractor is providing labor. The vendor is providing materials. That's the only exception, yes, sir.
Okay, so that's the only one. So you don't pay them all?
No, sir.
Okay.
If the IDA wished that we would just go ahead and pay and not choose to have the tax exemption, then we would pay it all, yes, sir.
Okay. That's what I couldn't figure out. I couldn't figure out why we would be giving you all this money to pay subcontractors and vendors, and we're paying Yana Concrete.
Yes,
okay. Well, I still don't like the idea of paying the light bill for Continuum Labs. I think that's all I've got. But I would like to get the information from Half Acre that I've been asking for.
And we are working on that. Greg and I have been putting all of that together in a nice, neat package for you. He just sent over a disc to me that has everything I think that you'll want to see. But,
okay.
I mean, it's going to, we're trying to take our time to put it together properly, but we are working on it.
I appreciate that. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
In that instead, I'll entertain a motion to approve both months' minutes, not minutes, but budget. Financial report, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Or a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Any other announcements we need to do today? Any comments from the public?
I would like to know is Half Acre, I understand I was here when it took over the 5% and all this stuff. I want to know if he's operating, can we get RFPs and these things? We don't seem to be able to find out nothing about this stuff. And I think him managing for the county should not eliminate the county from having to supply public records of where this money's going and all these different things, the RFPs, why did you decide to use this company to build this building and that sort of thing. Now, am I wrong, or I don't seem to be able to put a public records request. Y'all complain about them, but I put them in and I don't get no answer, so I put another one in. Are they supposed to operate like you should operate as far as producing the records of what goes on? I understand they're a private company and he's managing. You're paying him 5% to manage these deals. I understand that part.
The public records that we have, you may have access to.
Do you have the ones for everything he's doing?
I don't know.
Okay, well, that answered the question.
Well, I don't. He's running, I don't know how many
I'll
projects.
leave you alone. Let Hank
Well, they work all over 15 counties.
We do have, we certainly have the information. You're more than welcome to make a request of it, but as to date, we do not have any public records requests asking for
I got a file
half-acre
on my
information.
computer, went to you, and they come back blank.
You have them to me.
The,
You have
the Christie
records
to
requests.
you, sometimes to all of you, because they can't
For
find out
half-acre
which one of you is
information?
really the boss.
We do not have any records requests asking for half-acre information. The only request we've ever had came from Mr. Pullman for the contract, and he did receive that.
Okay, you got his then.
We're just received the what?
So, construction management contract.
I don't want to argue.
3 minutes. Oh, you start, when did you start the time?
Right now, you're going.
You're on an iPhone. Can we do that? We don't have the policy.
Hey, just like, let me check my Facebook. You may be on Facebook right now. See, I am up with technology too. I'm the latest. I'm a disruptor, and I'm right up there on the technology. I want to know why you didn't vote on Continuum Labs draw request. Mr. Lambert, let me talk. Mr. Lambert told the Auditor General that that's the plan. LifeSync was, you made a few problems or a few mistakes on LifeSync. You didn't get into reports for 1 year. So you were trying to talk to the Auditor General on August the 20th, and you put in writing that with Continuum Labs, you're going to put forth a draw request every month, and it's going to be voted on. You're going to have to approve those draw requests, whether you think they're good or not, before they go forward. We've been telling you guys about this for a long time. You still don't do it. Vice Chair Hernandez tried to do it on March the 12th. Couldn't get a motion, couldn't get a second. It was really embarrassing. Mr. Deason was here that day, got it on record. Ms. Casey came up and bailed you guys out, which was supported by the county attorney who says, basically do whatever you want, which is his standard answer for everything. So you really ought to be voting on this because nobody answered the question, the big question. Are you going to run out of money before the revenue starts? That's the huge question. Second question, how much money has been spent on physical assets by Continuum Labs and Tech River? Where are they? Who owns them? How are they being controlled? Inventory and control system. You guys have a policy on that. You're supposed to be keeping track of all this stuff by inventory number, and you're not doing it. Half acre. Half acre doesn't do RFPs. Half acre breaks the laws all the time on how they do RFPs. Perfect example, RFP for broadband service to the Preco building. It was done over the phone. They skipped Comcast completely, didn't even get a bid from them. And then it looks like they went back and backfilled the thing to try to make sure that Rapid Systems got the job. All of those things are huge. I mean, they're going to bite you guys. So when we sit here and Mr. Samuels does his homework, asks these great questions, but you guys sidestep, you got 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 people here who say nothing ever. I don't even know why they're on the damn board. Now you got a few people who are asked a couple of questions today. Mr. Jensen, 2 meetings ago, had some very good points.
Time's up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Coleman, I will address your one remark about opening for a motion. That was my mistake. And we did agree when we executed the contract that the
mistake.
Yes, I do.
I
We did
applaud you for that.
You may sit down. We did agree in the contract that the draws would not be based on a monthly vote. And so once again, I will acknowledge my error in that meeting in opening that motion. So thank you for bringing that up and giving me the opportunity to apologize.
Yes, sir.
Robert Cole, Wauchula. I recently learned that the IDA staff did a public records request to the State Auditor General's office for all the correspondence they received from the citizens of this county, reference letters and petitions prior to that meeting where they had the Hardy County officials up there before the committee. And is that true?
That is true.
How's that? That's asking. Okay.
Well, we have discussed it in this.
Well, why was that done? Were you spying on citizens? Was it for retribution? Why was it done? Why was that done? And you spent $600 something to pay for that public records.
I was noticed from Tallahassee that a petition came in to Tallahassee that had erroneous information that was presented as evidence to the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee. I didn't know enough about the nature of the petition to really define a request, so I had to make a broad request. I got 1,325 pages of information. I also found out with that information that the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee was overloaded with erroneous information, conjecture, and rumor from citizens in this community. I'm not sure what to do with this information. I am strongly compelled to correct the wrong that occurred. Sometime in the future, I'll decide what to do and make a recommendation to this board.
When that was reported to you by the auditing committee, why didn't you bring it to this committee? Because you don't have the authority to do anything. You don't have any independent authority. All your authority comes from this board, is that correct?
Well, then I stand reprimanded.
I'm not on the board, I'm not reprimanded yet. That's their job. But why didn't you bring it to the board? Why did you take it upon yourself, not only to make that request?
I addressed this in the last meeting, Mr. Cole. Addressed it again.
Well, I wasn't here. I had to leave before we got to that point.
Well, I apologize, but I did address it in the last meeting.
Mr. C, the board, why was this not brought to the board, and does the board stand behind Mr. Lambert? Because he didn't have the authority to do this. He has no independent authority. All his authority comes from this board. But all the responsibility stays with this board. You can delegate authority to him, but not responsibility.
Thank you for your comments.
You have no answer?
I have no problem with him requesting that to verify data that was erroneously reported. And I don't know if anybody on this board has a problem with that. If they do, they can speak up. I have no problem with that.
Where's the documents from the state that says there was erroneous information provided by the citizens?
In the 1,325 pages we got.
Then why wasn't that document brought to this board and you guys
Your time is
acted
up.
upon it?
Your time is up. Thank you for your comments. Any other business for good of this board? I'll move, hear a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I'm sorry? I'm at 1 o'clock. Oh, great.